Are you a travelpreneur who dreams of building a thriving business that gives you more time, financial freedom, and the flexibility to work from anywhere? Then you're in the right place, my friend. This is the Passports, Profits, and Pixie Dust podcast. I'm Lindsay Dollinger, and I've built multiple six-figure businesses while traveling the world, living life on my terms, and helping women entrepreneurs do the same. Whether you're a travel advisor, an online business owner, or someone looking to add more adventure and income to your life, this podcast is here to guide you. Each episode, I'll bring you business strategies that actually work, productivity hacks, branding and marketing expertise, and plenty of pixie dust fun to help you create a business that fuels your passion for both profits and travel. So if you're ready to scale your business, attract more leads, and build a brand that lets you work from anywhere in the world, let's dive in and create and own your magic together. Hey, welcome back to Passports, Profits, and Pixie Dust. My name is Lindsay Dollinger. Now that I'm starting to record this, I realize the sound might be really off in this room because I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. So I hope it's okay. I must have a different backdrop today, looking a little hot mess, although I feel like I normally look like a hot mess anyway. But today's podcast episode is inspired by my trip to, I guess it was a trip to Mexico, but we were not really a trip to Mexico, it was a cruise. The cruise that I had mentioned in my other episodes that I was so excited about ended up being a disaster. Pretty much hopefully I could say the worst trip that we have ever had. Not necessarily the actual cruise itself, although I have to admit I was not impressed at all with entertainment, food, just kind of the boat in general. But we were having a really great time until my dad fell on the cruise ship, broke his leg and his wrist, and we had to be airlifted from Mexico to Fort Lauderdale for emergency surgery. So that's what prompted today's episode. So if you do not know me, my name is Lindsay Dollinger. I am the travel agency owner of At Last I See the World Travel. I'm a marketing strategist also for travel advisors and your go-to girl for turning your love of travel into actual income. I love to travel. I've been traveling pretty much my whole life, and then I've been a travel agent now for almost 7 years. So what we're talking about today is something that's not sexy, it's not glamorous, but it is a non-negotiable if you want to run a legit, protected, professional travel business. And we're talking about travel insurance. If you've ever felt awkward bringing it up, or you have skipped it, or you've had a client say no thanks and you just moved on, we need to fix that today. And I have been that person before, so I feel very qualified to share about all of this with you today. So let me just dive into the story. Okay, I'll dive into a little bit of the story about what happened to us, my personal experience, and then I'm going to go into kind of the basics for you as a travel advisor, what you need to know. And even if you're listening to this, you're not a travel advisor, I have pretty much as an adult always bought the travel insurance. This probably stems from personally having some health issues as a young adult that I knew that my medical insurance would not cover me abroad. So I always wanted to make sure that I was covered more so for the medical piece of it than anything else if something were to come up. And thankfully, knock on wood, I've not personally had to use the medical piece of it. I have used some trip interruption, trip cancellation before, and now I'm diving into filling out paperwork for a bunch of other things. But anyway, I personally buy it for all of my international trips. I actually have had an annual plan now for probably 3 years since I realized that annual plans existed. Which now that I know that, I'm like, if you have more than one trip a year, why would you not get an annual plan? And I'm going to also put a little asterisk here and say, for this trip that we were just on, we actually have our annual plan that's good, but we also additionally bought the cruise insurance. Just because it was so cheap, we were like, why not? So that's going to play into this a little bit as well. But, I'm kind of the mindset of if you're spending so much money on a trip, one, I want to have at least get a portion of it back. So that's the thing with an annual plan is a lot of times the trip cancellation or the trip interruption insurance piece of it is maybe not as much as it would be. It might not cover 100% of a trip. especially if it's a more expensive trip. Like our plan, I think, covers like $5,000. However, the Carnival's insurance that we ended up buying through them, which I believe is through Aon, it covers 100% of the trip cost. So usually if you do a single trip, it's 100% versus an annual plan, it will have like a set number. One difference there. So anyway, we had both plans. We drove from Ohio to New Orleans. We live in Ohio. We drove from Ohio to New Orleans, me, my dad, and my sister. Had a couple of days in New Orleans. We got on the boat on my birthday. I was so excited. This is my birthday cruise. If you hear jingling in the background, that's my dad's dog. That's what I mean. Like, I'm staying at his house to help take care of him because, you know, he needs someone here to take care of him. But anyway, got on the boat. We had one sea day, and then the next day we were in Cozumel. We went to Paradise Beach Club, had a great time. And then that evening we got back on the boat, and before we cleaned up or anything, we just went to the pool to hang out. And that's where my dad ended up falling. So I was already heading back to the room. My sister was still with him. And I got a text and it said, "Come back, Dad fell and broke his leg." And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. So I like run through the ship. As I'm running, I see one of the men who cleans the rooms down a little bit further from our room. And I asked him if he could please call 911, which is what you call still on the ship if you have an emergency. And he told me to do it myself, which was like my first thing where I was like, is this real life right now? And I was like, I literally can't. I'm running to help him right now. Can you please call and make sure someone knows? Another guest heard me arguing with the man as I was like still running, having this argument, like yelling it. And he's like, "I'll call for you. Who do I like? Where is this happening?" So thank you to that guest who called, not the Carnival housekeeping. Anyway, long story short, they ended up getting my dad from Lido deck. We were on deck 9 down to medical on deck 0, checking him into what they called the ICU. It was literally a room. It was not anything, you know. They had an x-ray, confirmed that he broke his femur. They could not see his wrist break on the x-ray. We ended up finding out about the wrist break through a CAT scan at the Florida hospital. Anyway, right off the bat, they asked, "Do you have travel insurance? Did you buy it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do," because I was thinking of my annual plan. So I was giving them all that information. As that was happening, someone else from the ship, someone else from Carnival was looking it up, and they're like, "Oh, you also have the Carnival vacation plan." So they actually initiated the claim through there, and through the course of several hours, planned for me and my dad to get off of the boat in Mexico. So the next stop was Merida, was Progreso, but the airport there is Merida. And I had to get my dog. She's getting into stuff. So the Merida airport is about an hour from the Progreso cruise dock. So I got in an ambulance with my dad. I'm also glad I speak Spanish because the driver spoke a little English. The man and the paramedic in the back did not speak any English, which is fine because I'm a Spanish teacher. So we drove and got there. And then we took Jet ICU, which was I believe they said it was either $23,000 or $28,000 that the insurance company approved, they set up. So basically, we didn't have to pay for that. And I'm making that distinction because we did have to pay for the $5,800 of medical from the Carnival, quote unquote, ICU. That went on my dad's credit card. That was his credit card on file. They actually did not charge any of that until we were already off the boat. So I asked, like, well, what would have happened, like, if that card would have bounced or whatever? And they basically said they wouldn't have let my sister off because she stayed on the boat to take it back to New Orleans to get our car and our suitcases off, because with the Jet ICU, I could only bring a small backpack for, like, the two of us. So the majority of our belongings were still on the ship. So they basically said they wouldn't have let my sister off the ship without paying for it, even though, this is the funny thing, they would make her pay someone else's charge, but they wouldn't take, like, we had non-refundable credits, my dad and I, because we ended up canceling our excursion to Chichen Itza that I was so excited about. They wouldn't let her have our credits, but they would have made her pay for our bill. Another thing that I'm like, okay, this doesn't quite make sense. Which I also have on my to-do list this week to call Carnival Corporate and have a little discussion about how some things were handled, but that's for another day. So even with travel insurance, you still have to have a way to pay upfront for medical, hotels, if your flight were to get canceled, any of that stuff, and then you submit for reimbursement. And there's a lot of fine print. There's a lot of things to do to submit for all of those things. So I do recommend getting a claim started ASAP. So Carnival actually got the claim started when they initiated the process with Jet ICU for the emergency transportation. Because of that, I got emails with the claim documents, and then I was able to give certain things like to his hospital doctors once we got to Florida, and different things like that. So that was helpful that they were very much on top of it there. And then basically I'm going to be treating Allianz as like the secondary insurance to help us cover other things. Now, with the medical, it gets tricky because the way the medical works is your travel insurance medical won't pay for it until your at-home insurance declines it. So I had to take that bill. I mailed it in a couple of days ago. So we'll see how this ends up panning out, how things get paid. But it is a process. It is a lot of, reading the fine lines and doing the things right. Like I did notice that for the emergency transportation, for example, as I was reading through it, they had to be the ones to set it all up. Like we couldn't have done it personally if we would have wanted to. So that I thought was interesting. So I'm just sharing a little bit about my own personal experience. I also, with my annual plan, last year had a claim when I was in Egypt on my group trip. I got severe traveler's diarrhea and could not go on an excursion for, it was the hot air balloons over the Valley of the Kings. And I submitted a claim to Allianz when I got home. I had to submit proof that I paid for it. And then my quote unquote proof that I didn't go, which I didn't go to a doctor or anything. All I have is a screenshot WhatsApp of me texting the tour guide and saying, hey, I'm really sick. I'm not going today. And she said, okay, so sorry. And that's all I sent in. And they sent me my money back for that. So that was really nice. And they did it really quickly too. So I'm a huge fan of Allianz. So far, Aon, who I believe is who the Carnival travel protection was through, has been good. The only thing that we have so far gone through with them is the emergency transportation. They did cover that. They set all of that up. We basically I didn't have to handle any of the logistics of that, which was really nice. I just had to figure things out basically once I got to Florida and, really be an advocate for my dad. But we are home to Ohio now. We got into Fort Lauderdale last Thursday. Gosh, it was over a week ago now. Friday, he had surgery. He got released on Tuesday at noon, and then I drove him home 18 hours, Tuesday and Wednesday. It was rough. I'm not going to lie. I am very sleep deprived. Also, during that time, I got COVID. I got bit by a brown recluse spider. 2 of my credit cards got stolen and hacked. Not physically stolen, but the numbers stolen. And so they got turned off, so I actually couldn't use those. So thank goodness I brought 3 cards with me. I always bring more than I think I will need. So that's another fair reason to be overprepared. So if all of that to say is not reason enough to remind you why travel insurance is so important, let's just start here. Let's flip the script. Instead of saying travel insurance is optional, and let's just think it's not optional. It's part of our job as a travel advisor to encourage strongly that our clients get it, because things go wrong, flights get canceled, people get sick, luggage disappears, weather happens, life happens, freak accidents happen. And when it does, your client's not going to call the airline first. They're going to call you. So the question is going to become, did you set them up to be protected or not? Because if they're not protected, guess who's going to get blamed? It's going to be you. So what can travel insurance actually cover? Breaking it down simple and client-friendly language, because you should be explaining it like this too. And one thing I always do say as well is I am not a travel insurance agent. Like, I'm not an insurance agent. So I always pass along the whole policy for clients to look at and to judge if things are going to be covered or not. I can say, this is my interpretation. Let me know what you think. But I'm very careful about saying like, oh, it always covers this or always covers that, because you and I both know insurance companies will try to find a loophole when they possibly can, right? So most solid travel insurance policies can cover trip cancellation before the trip interruption, which is while they're actually traveling. So we will hopefully be getting back a portion of our trip costs through the trip interruption, which they only have myself and my dad on the claim, not my sister. And I think that's kind of crappy. Although, like, yes, she did stay on the cruise. She stayed on and did paperwork for like 2 full days and did laundry. So I don't know, we're going to talk to them about that. But medical emergencies abroad, like my dad had, this is going to be huge, especially for international travel. Emergency evacuation like we had. So this isn't just helicopters like I thought it was. The people at Jet ICU told me that they run the route between Fort Lauderdale and Cozumel, Merida, all the Mexican ports and different islands in the Caribbean up to 10 times a day, usually for cruise passengers. Apparently falling on cruises or like heart attacks on cruises are very common. So I mean, I knew that, yes, that could happen, but I didn't realize how common. So not just helicopters, also the jet ICU type situations. It's also going to cover lost, stolen, delayed baggage to an extent, and then travel delays for different reasons. So hotels, meals, things like that. And then one of the biggest things that clients might also be interested in is cancel for any reason upgrade. To my knowledge, this isn't going to be found on any annual plans, but it is found usually on individual plans if you buy it within 24 to 48 hours of the initial deposit. So if you booked a trip a week ago and now you're like, I want to cancel for any reason, it's most likely too late. So that, that number can change based off the company, but check into that. Cancel for any reason is going to be a lot more expensive, but it literally means they can cancel for any reason and get a portion of their money back. Usually it's up to 100%, except for the cost of the insurance. You might hear the objection, but my credit card has insurance. Yeah, okay, let's talk about the difference. Most credit card insurance is limited. It only kicks in under very specific circumstances. It often doesn't include medical coverage, which is, to me, is the most important. Usually has a ton of fine print. It may require you to put the entire trip on that card in order for it to cover it. And it's reimbursement based. It's not going to be upfront help like how I mentioned, with the Jet ICU, we didn't have to pay the $23,000 upfront. And it's not fully designed to fully protect a traveler. Now, is it nice? It's a perk, yes, but it's not like a plan. So when your client says this, your job is not going to be to argue. Your job is going to be to educate. Awesome. Definitely look into that further. Just know most credit card coverage is pretty limited, especially for medication or medical medications, cancellations. So I recommend a dedicated policy for full protection. Done, professional covered, right? So let's talk about some of the big insurance names. Now, your host agency might have different ones that are preferred suppliers, so check into that. But here's some names. Allianz, that's the one, like I said, I love and use. It's kind of the guy on the doctor on the cruise ship, when I gave him the information, was actually kind of shocked because I think our emergency transportation on our plan was $500,000. He was like, wow, this is a luxury bougie plan. And I'm like, dude, it cost me $270. Like, not really, right? But a lot of plans didn't cover it. So like the Carnival one was $50,000 emergency transportation, just to show you the difference between the two companies. So Allianz, love them. I personally have not had any issues with them and have had great things. Other ones that I know of are Rome Right, Travel Guard, TravelX, World Nomads has one. Faye is one that I see popping up that's a newer one. There's several of them. So do your research, get educated, ask around in different travel agent groups. Which ones are you using? Have you actually personally had a claim with and they've been great working with? and go from there. The key is not going to be memorizing the policy, right? Because you are going to be sending the things to your client to help them compare them. So let's talk about what you need to point out to your clients. This is where you go from the order taker to the actual expert, because not all the policies are created equal, like I mentioned. So here are some things you might want to highlight. Pre-existing condition coverage usually requires purchase within a specific window. It might have like a limitation max for it. Like I know that's how my Allianz plan is. The cancel for any reason availability, because like I said, not all policies will offer it, and it will depend on if you have waited until after the fact, after the trip has been paid to look into insurance. Coverage limits on medical, baggage, trip costs, like I mentioned, the emergency transportation. These things all matter, and make a note of whether they are per person, whether they are per instance, whether they are per plan, per day. All of these things should be outlined in the policy for you. And then whether this is a primary versus secondary medical coverage, like I mentioned, how I have to submit everything first through our primary, and then anything that's not covered, then we'll go through them. And then whether it is a supplier direct that you're buying or a third-party insurance, because the cruise line or hotel insurance or the insurance that you can buy when you check out a airline ticket often is more limited. Like I mentioned, like the difference between the emergency transportation, but it doesn't mean it's bad, right? So if you have someone who, like me, we have our annual plan, but we just want something that has a little bit more medical or a little bit more something else, they're not always a bad option. Or if someone's like, I really only have $150 to pay for this, then we get what we can get, right? And then also pointing out what is not covered, because this is just going to be as important as what is covered, right? We want our people to be making informed decisions. Now let's talk about protecting you, because this matters too. There's a whole lot of advisors who get in a lot of trouble, because if your client declines insurance, you must have offered it clearly, have explained it and documented it that they declined it, and get it signed. So I'm going to repeat that. Document that they declined it and keep that. So this can be as simple as a signed waiver. This can be a checkbox in your CRM, in your credit card authorization form, aligning your terms and conditions, and then maybe an email confirmation that they opted out. Something like, I understand that I have been offered travel insurance and have chosen to decline coverage. Because if something goes wrong later, you need proof that you did your job, so that if you get sued, you're not going to lose that. This is how we cover your butt and how we protect your business. So let's talk about how to position insurance like a pro. Here's your reframe. Remember, you're not selling insurance. You are offering peace of mind. You're protecting their investment. You are acting like a professional. So instead of just saying, do you want me to quote insurance for you? Let's say, I highly recommend protecting your trip with travel insurance. I can send you a couple options. Do you prefer basic coverage or something more comprehensive? You could also say, if you know it's someone who has more than one trip booked with you, or maybe that they will be looking at it down the road, I will also quote you an annual insurance plan so you can look at the differences in those. Notice the difference in that. I highly recommend you protecting your trip. That is assumptive, that is confident, and that is you positioning yourself as an expert and pointing out, this is really important. So at the end of the day, travel insurance is one of those things that your clients hope that they never need. Like me, like I said, I have traveled hundreds of times and not needed it. But when you do need it, it makes all the difference. And how you handle this conversation with them, it's going to build trust. It's going to protect your reputation, because you know what's going to happen when they fall on that trip and then they get stuck with a $28,000 bill to get them from Mexico to Fort Lauderdale. They're running your name through the mud. Or they're singing your praises, like, thank God Lindsay made me get the travel insurance, because now we don't have to pay $28,000. And this is going to help keep your business safe long term and help out people, right? Because no one wants, I would have felt horrible had I recommended my family not to get it and then something would have happened. I can't even imagine. So if this episode was helpful, please share it with another travel advisor who needs to tighten up their systems, because this is one of those things that can save you a lot of headaches later. And if you're a travel advisor who wants more support, scripts, systems to book clients, come hang out in my world. I have lots of freebies on my website because we don't just book trips over here. We build businesses that last. So go out there, create and own your magic friend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. I hope you're leaving today inspired, Princess, to create, own, and spread your magic to the world. If you found value in this episode or know a girlfriend who needs to hear it, would you screenshot it and send it to her? And if you're feeling really generous, pop it up on your IG stories and tag me at Lindsay Dollinger so I can see you loved it and tell you thank you. I appreciate you. Now let's go do some amazing things. Bye-bye. Hey, fellow Disney lover, are you looking for magical, comfy fashion? Then you need to check out Bella Bling's shop. Bella Bling's size-inclusive line is perfect for park hopping, princess races, or just adding a bit of everyday magic into your life. Much of the artwork of this comfortable clothing line is hand-drawn, unique artwork. I know this because I watch my sister do it. Yes, this is my sister's shop, and she takes so much time and care into everything that she creates. Every single piece is special. So again, whether you are just getting excited, going to the parks, whether you're getting ready to run a race, or whether you just want to add a little bit of Disney fashion into your life, make sure you check out Bella Bling's adorable, comfortable styles. Visit www.bellablingshop.com. You know I'll put that in the show notes for you. And make sure you use code PODCAST, all capital letters, to get 10% off your first order. Tag me when you get it, and I want to see what you decide.